Common sense buffs. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. We are back once again on the Common Sense Buff channel. Guys, you guys have been showing me a lot of love, man. Wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. I took a little bit of hiatus, but I couldn't stay away for too long. The season is back. It's gonna be like news being made every single minute. I'm going to do my best to cover it alongside you as we support these Colorado Buffaloes as they kick off season number 3 of the Coach Prime era. Georgia Tech is on the menu this week, on the schedule this week. I'm not going to be disrespectful, guys, but we are going to have fun on this chat because Georgia Tech is no slouch, and the Buffaloes are going to have to show up ready to play in game number 1. They've been putting in the work, guys, in the transfer portal, bringing over a lot of talent to get ready for a competitive season. They have also been doing a lot of work in the weight room and with conditioning, bringing over Coach Swayze being added to this coaching staff, as well as some other members of the support staff who have gotten these Buffaloes ready to play. And then coaching staff additions all across the board, promotions as well. And so it's been an exciting spring, an exciting summer, a great fall camp, and they should be excited and ready to play as the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets come calling this Friday. And what I anticipate will probably be one of the biggest games of, I guess, week 1 of college football. So this is an interactive conversation, guys. I want to chat with you because Coach Prime made a huge announcement, which is the reason why you're tuning in right now. He finally announced who is going to be QB1 to get the start against the Yellow Jackets this Friday, and that's going to be none other than transfer quarterback Kaidon Salter. We're going to get into a little bit of his statistics, but I really want to get into a conversation with you in the chat. What do you think it means for these Colorado Buffaloes to have finally made the announcement of who their starting QB is going to be, and what are you expecting for Kaidon Salter? So in the chat is where the conversation is going to be, and I'm going to kick off the conversation by saying I am very, very excited. And the first reason why I'm excited that Kaidon is going to start against Georgia Tech is because of his experience. Kaidon Salter has played a lot of college football, and what Prime said in his press conference earlier today was that Kaidon Salter has walked out of that tunnel before. If you watch Well Off Media, which is Bucky Sanders' channel, if you watch Reach the People Media, which is Darius Sanders' channel, and if you watch the Pregame Network, which is Uncle Neely's channel, and those are the 3 primary channels, including like the official Colorado Buffaloes football team's channel, you get an inside look into this college football program. Of course, you don't see everything, but there is certainly more that you see with this Colorado Buffaloes team than you've ever seen behind the scenes of a college football team. Now, some people, I think early on, a lot of people knocked him for that, right? Thought it was all about the glitz and glamour and kind of the most kind of the inflection point about how people felt about the level of attention the Colorado Buffaloes were getting on social media was Dan Lanning in his pregame speech to the Oregon Ducks before that game in 2023. And he was like, "Well, we're playing for wins; they're playing for clicks, right?" So you get a lot of the background. You get to see this team on camera. You get to know the guys. You get to know their personalities. You get to know the program. And one of the things that Prime always says is that the lights in Colorado are extremely bright. A lot of players are attracted to that program because it's an opportunity to raise their profile, but not everybody is built to play under those lights. So oftentimes when he's kind of giving his pre-practice speeches, Prime talks about in preparation for this game, you need to put your phone away. Don't look at what people are going to be saying on social media. People like me, people on Twitter, people even in their family. If you don't come to the table with the kind of experience that Kaidon Salter has, even though he's never played in this kind of situation, the fact that he's played and had to lock in and lead a team through multiple seasons when something was on the line is going to be critical for whoever, in this case, Kaidon taking over as QB1. Not only from the pressure of the media in the current season, and all of the attraction and all of the celebrity that's going to be on the sideline and in the stands during this game, and all the celebrities that are going to be in the locker room, and all the media attention this game is going to get. Like I said, it's probably going to be the most watched football game come Friday night. And we're going to do a live stream here. I'm going to do some live commentary of that game when it goes live. So choosing Kaidon Salter to be your starting quarterback going into a game like this, based on his experience, I think is absolutely critical. Kaidon has the experience and the production. He doesn't just have the starts, he has the production in those starts to play in big games, including leading his team in 2023 to an undefeated season. So I like this pick of Kaidon Salter because he's a guy who's been there. He's a guy who has the experience. And because of that, he's well positioned to do very well in this game. And there were times during the summer, times during the fall, where that QB competition was really close with a highly touted 5-star quarterback who was also in that room, Juju Lewis. And there were times there where there was real conversation, according to Coach Prime in press conferences, etc., where he really thought and he really expressed that they were giving Juju a true quarterback competition, unlike some other quarterback competitions. But I digress. In the NFL involving a Colorado Buffaloes player, there was a true quarterback competition in Colorado between Kaidon Salter and Juju Lewis, and experience plus production over that time is what I think catapulted Kaidon and helped him win this job. So Juju is in the wings, and Prime said in his press conference today that it's likely, depending on how the game is going, that Juju might be able to get some burn in this game. And we understand why that's important. I mean, he was the second rated quarterback coming out of high school. He was committed to USC prior to transferring to Colorado. And that was a big get for Coach Prime. So I know a lot of football purists, a lot of people are going to say, hey, this is a kid right out of high school. He needs to sit. He needs to be under somebody more experienced. I get that. But this is not the new era of college football, because the guy who was higher than him, the only quarterback who was higher than him, and Juju Lewis in this case, was Bryce Underwood. And I believe Bryce is going to be the starting quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, there's probably a more experienced guy in that locker room, but Bryce is getting big money not to sit, but to play. And in college football, these guys are getting paid. So imagine Bryce Underwood being the college football equivalent of Cam Ward. Ready or not, you're going to play. You're getting paid to play. That is essentially what college football is. And so Prime needs to be, and I believe he is, as much as he expresses to all the players that come that this is about winning, this is about football, he understands what he has on his hand in Juju Lewis, and he's already preparing him to be ready to play and get some reps, even though Kaidon is getting the start. So I think that's very smart between him and Pat Shermer and Byron Leftwich as well. Can you imagine your offensive coordinator being Pat Shermer coming from the NFL, and you're like a 17-year-old kid, and then your quarterback coach, in addition to your own private quarterback coach, being Byron Leftwich? So there are a lot of things that they're doing to make sure that Juju feels comfortable being in that number 2 seat, that so that Kaidon can really take the lead, and because it's going to be a quarterback shootout. On the opposite side of the field, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are going to take the field with an probably a more experienced in the Power Four setting quarterback in Haynes King. And if this game turns out to be quarterback on quarterback in a true quarterback battle, you want the more experienced guy to be leading your team out there on the field. The guy who's led a team to victory after a quick start, the guy who's led a team to victory after a slow start, the guy who's led a team to victory starting with the lead and had to protect it, and a guy who led his team to victory having to come from behind. Those are all the experiences that you can't teach. Talent is very important, but having been there, having done that is going to be critical in this game, because I think we're going to see a little bit of everything from Georgia Tech There might be opportunities for Georgia Tech to be ahead early, or Georgia Tech staging a comeback and Caden needing to do something miraculous to pull a game off. So I like him in this starting position. So for those of you who don't follow Colorado that closely, and you're like, hey, look, I only tune in to Colorado stuff. You're the guys who are obsessed with it. You're on Discords talking about this team, etc. Tell me a little bit about why I should care about Kaidon Salter. So one of the things that Kaidon Salter brings to the table, which is why he was one of the most highly touted prospects in the transfer portal in the spring, why a lot of teams wanted this player, is because he played high school football in Texas. I think he was 6A. And you know, Texas is football crazy. When you're playing in 6A, you're playing in the biggest division. And I think he led his team. I'm not sure if they won the championship. I could double check my stats on that, but they certainly played in the championship game. He was also named the Texas 6A quarterback of the year. So very highly touted. I think he was 4 stars coming out of high school. So he has the high school pedigree. He's like a version of Juju Lewis, right? An older version of Juju Lewis coming out of high school. Very highly recruited. He was recruited to Tennessee, and he had an off the field issue. I didn't even know this until I was watching Buff's News Weekly. So big shout out to the creator who educated me on this. But the reason why Kaidon Salter had to leave Tennessee is because it was an off the field issue with his involving his teammate Amari McNeil, who's a defensive tackle. I believe it's the same Amari McNeil, who's a defensive tackle for the Colorado Buffaloes now. And I think he got pulled over for a tail light issue. They ended up finding marijuana in the car, and so he was let go from that team. He had to do a reset. He went over to Liberty, and he played, I believe, 3 seasons for them. And the statistics that I'm going to go over are his statistics from his time at Liberty. His best season was his 2023 season. He kind of had he took a step back in 2024. Much of what I've seen in the press about that step back is because he lost a lot of weapons in 2023. See, the thing about college football is that if you have a great season, a lot of the guys that you're throwing to are probably going to get better opportunities to go elsewhere. And if you as the quarterback you're not afforded that same opportunity and you have to stay with the school that you were with where you put up those big numbers, you're going to be playing with a much depleted team versus the talent that you had when you had your best season. So that's, I think, a little bit of the Kaidon Salter story. So if you guys are following me, you're enjoying this content. First of all, the algorithm likes when you hit the like button. So go ahead and hit that. If you're not subscribed right now, I would appreciate it if you subscribed. This is the place where you come just for somebody being calm, speaking with common sense, and giving you some information that you can understand and you wouldn't be embarrassed to share. So in the chat, if you're liking the content, if you have a question, something that you want me to talk about, something that resonates, please let me know. All right, so let's look at his statistics. I'm pulling all of this from ESPN. Kaidon Salter, starting quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes. He is currently a senior. This is going to be his last year. So speaking of another reason to really come out and tear it up, right? All of these guys have NFL aspirations. What better stage do you want as a quarterback, as a senior, to have than to play for the Colorado Buffaloes as they compete for a Big 12 championship? He's 6'1", 190 pounds. Some would consider that a little bit undersized, but who knows, right? He's a dual threat quarterback, so it might work well for him. And when you watch highlights of Kaidon Salter, what you realize is that not only is he good with his feet, but he's very slippery, right? Some running quarterbacks take a lot of hits. When Kaidon Salter scrambles, he's going to get big chunk yardage and he's going to avoid those big hits down the field. I like him as a runner. He's very, very smart and he's very dangerous. Like I mentioned, he played football in Texas. His birthplace is Cedar Hill, Texas. Now, in 2024, we'll start with 2024 to be fair because, hey, what have you done for me lately? So this is last season. He had 1,800 yards passing. He had 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a QBR rating of 48. All right. So nobody's calling home about his 2024 season. Like I said, he would probably say this. I think all the analysts said this. In 2024, he certainly took a step back. The reasons I suppose that I have heard are the reasons that I gave, but there's always nuances, right? Who knows what was happening in that locker room? Who knows how he felt? Maybe he wanted to transfer, didn't have a chance to. I think that's part of his backstory as well. He just didn't have the same season I'm sure he wanted to have. So that was what we saw from him in 2024. However, even with those numbers, he was still one of the most highly sought after transfer players in the spring. So, more 2024 statistics. He had 141 147 completions on 261 attempts for a completion percentage of 56%. Could have been better. Like I said, 1,800 yards passing, average yards per pass, 7.2 yards, right? So not a lot of deep shots down the field. 15 TDs, 6 interceptions. He did have a long of 70 yards, so 70-yard passing touchdown. Okay. Now, in 2023, though, the season that really put him on the map, where he really tore it up, is the season where I want to focus because I think he's positioned to have a similar season. Now, I didn't even talk about his rushing yards, and I mentioned that he's a dual threat quarterback. So we'll talk about his not only his passing but his rushing yards as well. Okay, here we go. So in 2024, in terms of rushing, he had 114 carries. Now, if you know anything about Colorado over the last 2 years, we didn't have a quarterback that was going to be a real running threat. Now, Shador could use his legs to get out of trouble and extend plays, and we did see him run downfield. But Shador is one of those quarterbacks who's trying to let you know he's not scared. And so he would go down and lower his shoulder and take some big hits down the field. Like I said, you're not going to see the same thing with Kaidon. So he had 114 rushing attempts, and these are usually designed runs. So when I say he's a true dual threat quarterback, this is a play that's called in the huddle for him to actually run the ball. He's not improvising. And on those 114 carries, he had 587 yards. Having that kind of real threat at quarterback keeps the defense honest. One of the things that, because Colorado did not have a rushing game, a rushing attack in 23 and 2024, defenses could just bring the rush. They could bring the pressure because they knew there was really no run threat. With Kaidon Salter at quarterback, defensive coordinators, defensive linemen, linebackers, everybody has to be aware of the run. And that includes DBs in turning their back to the line of scrimmage when they think it's a pass and Kaidon being 20, 30 yards down the field before they even realize it. Now let's pivot to the 2023 season. And this was where he really put himself on the map and why I think he was so highly recruited coming out and the kind of season I think he has the ability to replicate in 2025. Passing, he had 177 completions on 290 attempts for a 61% completion percentage. Remember how I was saying, hey, 58%, 61 in the 60s is kind of where you want to see your quarterback, right? And in practice, one of the things that Prime harps on is like, especially in 7-on-7, is you got to get completions, right? Even if it's a check down, you want to be moving the ball forward. And he had that 61% completion percentage, and he threw for 2,876 yards. So a big season for him. But what I think you're going to be most impressed with is when he combines the passing statistics that I'm sharing with his rushing yards that season. So he was averaging 9.9 yards per completion, and he broke a school record with touchdown passes. He had 32 touchdown passes in that season. And I think his number one receiver that season was CJ Daniels, who went to LSU after the season that he had with Kaidon. His longest touchdown pass that season was 75, and he had 32 TDs on 6 interceptions. And that's really what you want to see from your QB1. But here's what I really, really love about those statistics. on the rushing side of the ball. So he had 163 carries for over 1,000 yards. Now, if you can have a QB in Colorado pass for 2,800 yards and rush for 1,000, I'm not saying he's going to rush for 1,000 yards again. They have a lot of runners in the backfield who are going to be here to assist him, but he is such a running threat that he has the ability to break long runs as well for touchdowns. So, in addition to those 1,000 yards rushing, he also had 12 rushing touchdowns with a long of 52 yards. So that's just bringing you up to speed on the kind of football player that Coach Prime has in Kaidon Salter, and no wonder he won the starting quarterback job. Now, how does that play against Georgia Tech? Well, the good thing about having a run pass quarterback to counter Georgia Tech is because Georgia Tech is a running team that wants to control the clock. The passing game is exciting. You could get yards in bunches, but you could turn the ball over really quickly if you don't burn a lot of clock if you get an interception. Right? The passing game really works when you're completion. You're keeping the chains moving and the clock running. The problem with being pass heavy, and the only team last year that did this successfully against Georgia Tech because they threw the ball all over the yard, was Syracuse. I think Kyle McCord in that Syracuse game had like over 400 yards passing. They just beat them, right? I mean, they couldn't do anything with Syracuse's passing attack. I'm not quite sure if Pat Shermer is going to take that approach in the game. I expect that he's going to use Kaidon Salter to really control the clock, right? Run the ball, take your time, and keep that Georgia Tech offense off the field. Much like teams wanted to do to Colorado last year. The way they would beat us, especially in the Big 12, that's a run heavy league, and some early Big 12 games that will give you some sense of what we can expect down the road was like, for example, the season opener between Iowa State and Kansas State. Run heavy game. Iowa State came away with the win. The heaviness of the run, or the role that the run played in that game, was probably exacerbated by the fact that it was raining, so they really couldn't pass the ball even if they wanted to. But we know in the Big 12 they're going to run the ball, right? Control the clock. Same thing for what I saw from the Kansas Jayhawks and Jalen Daniels, right? Dual threat quarterback, probably more of a runner than a passer. They really used the run and misdirection to control the clock. What I expect and what I would hope, using Kaidon as the weapon that he is that we're going to keep Georgia Tech's offense off the field, because what they really like to do is run, and then hit you for the big play downfield. But I don't think that you can take that and just take it to the bank that they're going to be exactly the same team as they were last year, because they have different personnel, much like Colorado. So in preparation for Colorado, all they have on tape is Shador Sanders and the version of Pat Shermer's offense that he ran last year. But Haynes King didn't spend the entire offseason just doubling down on what he's good at. I've been watching videos of him, and he's been spending a lot of time working on his passing game. And so what I expect to see is a slightly different version of Georgia Tech, even though, it's hard for a dog to change its spots, or it's hard for a tiger to change its stripes. We can still reasonably expect a similar Georgia Tech offense, but I think using Kaidon Salter in this game to control the clock is going to be a key. The second key is that when he is throwing the ball, he's able to get the ball downfield and get it done accurately. So he's not a quarterback, if he drops back or you're running play action with him, you really have to be concerned every time he throws the ball, because you think it's going to be a turnover. I think he's more of the quarterback of 2023 in terms of his turnover percentage than he is the quarterback that he was in 2024. And this is the first time he has the kind of weapons that he's being afforded at Colorado. Look at who he has both in the backfield: Micah Welsh, Track Hawk, the Kalen Taylor, and look who he has on the outside, right? He has break the class in case of emergency wide receivers all around him. He has Draylon Miller in the slot, Omarion Miller to the outside. And I think it's still a toss up between what's the kid's name out of Tulsa. Let me look up his name real quick. His name is slipping my mind right now. The Tulsa wide receiver that transferred. What are you guys thinking about the content? Let me know what you think. This show is all about you. I would love to get your reactions. I would love to get your questions. Are you enjoying the show? Okay, Tulsa wide receiver Joseph Williams. So I got slotted in Omarion Miller. I got slotted in Draylon Miller. I had slotted in for sure, running out of the tunnel and lining up first at the other side, Joseph Williams. But there's this other player who's been having an outstanding um, fall camp that is giving Joseph Williams a run for his money. And that is none other than Sincere Brown, the 6'5". I think he runs like a 4.4 4.3. So imagine now you have a running quarterback, you have an explosive kind of lightning back into Kalen Taylor out of Incarnate Word, a new transfer. You have a bruiser, right? A real bowling ball. Talk about controlling the clock, just handing it off to Michael Welch and having him wear down that front seven of Georgia Tech. But then if you need an escape plan, an exit, right? You got three very capable, very experienced wide receivers in the Miller brothers and Sincere Brown or Joseph Williams. I think we'll also see a lot of action in the run game and in formations that are indicating run on first and second down. We're going to see Savell Smalls as kind of that sixth lineman, right, in the rushing attack. I believe we're also going to see a good dose of Zach Atkins, the transfer tight end. I think he was Division two. Can't think of the name that he transferred for, from being a safety blanket for Kaidon, right? Making sure he's keeping again those linebackers honest by having reliable tight ends that he can get the ball to. So, guys, that's it for this live stream. Very, very excited by Coach Prime going with Kaidon Salter. Thank you guys so much for being here. I see some of you guys trickling in. Go ahead and hit the like button. Really, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Join me for the live commentary on Friday, kicking off at 6 o'clock, man. You guys are not going to want to miss that. I know it's going to be a very widely watched game. I won't be able to stream the game, but I certainly will be giving you guys my commentary. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with somebody who couldn't make it. And until next time, peace.